Today we're putting the sport bike and Formula car together as one unit, so buckle up.
That is crazy. All right, let's start this video out with a tune-up on the Suzuki Bandit before we stick it in the Formula car. Let's get to work. Got some ignition coils and spark plugs.
Also -2+3 sprocket set for faster acceleration and a new gold chain to replace the rusted old one. All right, starting on the ignition coils, the tank comes off once again and out comes the coolant lines, which will be a 2-in-1 repair since we still have to diagnose and fix the coolant leak the bike still has. With the ignition coils and plugs opened up, it's out with the old and in with the new. And I have to say, working on bikes is awesome. Everything is so accessible, easy to replace, and super cheap. So pulling the spark plugs out, I was a little nervous to see what I'd find on a pretty sketchy 80,000 mile bike. But as I checked each one, I was actually very pleasantly surprised.
All right, so these are the spark plugs that came out of an 80,000 mile Suzuki Bandit 1250. A little bit of carbon on them, but honestly, really not bad. So with the plugs and coils replaced, I'm gonna move on to figuring out the coolant leak. I suspect an O-ring right in this area. So I'm gonna unscrew that, replace the O-ring potentially, and then see if it keeps leaking. And once that coolant leak is actually figured out, we can start stripping the front end to actually weld this thing in there. I kind of just want to figure out those miscellaneous issues now before we actually weld it in. So that being said, let's get to this coolant leak.
The bike was leaking from the left side, but when I traced the coolant back up the engine to where it was leaking from, I actually found out it was the right side of the engine, coming from a fitting connected to the engine block. So I opened it up and I found...
This right here is the remnants of what came out. That's the old seal. I don't know if it was a gasket or an actual O-ring.
And little did I know, this O-ring is custom order from Suzuki. So I placed the order and I waited. In the meantime, I moved on to getting the suspension on and adjusted correctly, since getting the powertrain installed is next and I need the car sitting exactly level as it will be when it's 100% done. At this point, I'm still not sure I understand the race car suspension, so I'm throwing everything in loosely to get a good test fit. I was super pumped to see it all together and back on the ground tonight, but unfortunately when I tried putting the new wheels on, the lug nuts were a completely wrong size, and it looked so far off that I thought the wheels might not work at all. Luckily, the next day I ran to the wheel supplier and they actually had a set of thin wall lug nuts that fit perfectly.
I am so glad they had those lug nuts. That would have sucked.
So we were back on track.
First time the new wheels have ever been on this thing. Those brakes could use some work. I know I'm not big enough for sponsorships yet, but Willwood, if you want to hook us up with new brakes, like, hit me up. Before we get too far into the video, let's take a second to thank today's video sponsor. Today we're looking at the HOVERAir X1 Pro Max drone. This is a drone designed for content creators and really anybody who likes to have adventures. And the best part about this thing is it fits in your pocket. So let's get this thing out of the box, fly it around a little bit, have some fun. Let's do it.
Inside the box was the drone and a lot of different hardware, including the beacon, a modular remote, extra batteries, ND filters, a case, and more. Setup was super easy, everything was step by step, very straightforward, and I got my phone and the units paired up and updated with no problems. The first flight I took, I could not believe my eyes. This drone is legit like a personal camera crew. I started by putting it on follow mode and tried running from it, hiding from it, just like walking around, and it never lost track or crashed one time. I even tried bicycle mode on a 40-mile-per-hour dirt bike, and it kept up and never lost track once. And the footage it got was incredible. It can do automated tracking modes, you can use motion control with it, or you can assemble the remote control all the way and fly it with that as well. It's legit everything I want in a drone.
The footage you get for this thing is absolutely insane. Not only like the camera quality, but like the software of the like follow mode, orbit mode. You literally just open it up, you push the freaking go button, hold it out, and you're filming. And when they say you can fit this thing in your pocket, you actually can fit this thing in your pocket. Just like hands down, the biggest bang for your buck. And it's fully protected with the cage too, like it's never going to break. So thanks for supporting this channel and hooking us up with the HOVERAir X1 Pro Max. Thing was a blast to fly, great quality footage, intuitive software, and it fits in your freaking pocket. So you can take it anywhere your adventures take you. There's a link below for you guys to check it out. Thanks again for supporting the channel. Let's get back to the video. Let's get this thing lowered down for the first time ever on its own wheels with all the frame modifications. First time ever on these wheels. They'll definitely need a alignment badly. This thing is so low.
So when I set the car on the ground, there was a pretty obvious lean towards the left wheel.
I think it's, I can tell still it's leaning. And this still doesn't link up. The frick. It just goes to show how light this thing is. Oh, yeah, this is still super far off.
Remember, I still don't fully understand the suspension, so I took it all back apart and decided once and for all just to put the adjustments the same from the left side to the right side on everything.
Whoa.
But even after hours of work and all the adjustments identical, it just wasn't sitting right. And remember, this formula car was crashed, and I didn't know the extent of the damage. So as I continued trying to troubleshoot this problem, I began to expect the worst, that the frame was twisted. I took everything back apart to try installing everything in the reverse order to see if that would help. Luckily for me, the answer to this whole thing was simple. Notice the jack position here. As I began to really understand how the suspension works, I realized the suspension isn't connected to the main chassis at all. So it floats separately to keep the wheels on the ground without being affected by body roll. I was using the suspension subframe as a jack point. When I moved the jack point to the frame of the chassis, I was pumped to see everything lined up 100%.
This whole suspension setup is connected to the frame, but it's not part of the frame. Anyway, kind of strange, but I think we got it. Sometimes the hardest part is just wrapping your mind around how this actually works. And once you understand that, you can make any adjustment you need. So anyway, I think that was it. Let's get these wheels on and see if it'll sit a lot better. That's definitely a lot better. All right, there we go. We just learned how to adjust a Formula car's suspension.
The time has come, everybody. I just need to get the freaking motorcycle into the Formula car. I've been waiting weeks now on 2 O-rings to come in so I could fix this coolant leak. 2 weeks. And yes, I have tried every other O-ring I have. I have looked at every store to see if they have it. It's like a freaking special Suzuki O-ring you have to buy, or else it's just gonna keep leaking. It's been 2 weeks since I did that, and they're still not even shipped. I've accepted my fate that we're just gonna be using this bike no matter what. We're just gonna slap it in there, get everything linked up, so by the time the freaking O-rings come in, we can just put the O-rings in and then hopefully drive it. So in preparation to put this thing in there, I gotta take the front end off, so I'll lift it up, take the front end off, and we'll slap it in. Let's do it.
The time is officially here to pair the powertrain up with the car, so I needed to jack the bike up in a way that I could slide it into the frame without it hitting anything. So that was a trick in itself. Off with the front wheel, out with the entire front end suspension, front brake assembly and controls.
Wow. Somebody absolutely effed this one up.
The clutch assembly and controls.
So I just got the throttle cables out. Now, a lot of motorcycles, especially older motorcycles, have a push-pull throttle, where when you twist the throttle, one gets pulled, and then when you turn it back, the other one gets pulled. And the push-pull is kind of like a fail-safe for if your throttle gets jammed open, you can forcefully close it with the other one. So anyway, my hope was to do a pull cable delete and just use this one for the throttle. But going into this the whole time, the concern was that the spring was worn out on the bike and it wouldn't actually allow this to just spring closed. But you guys can see it snaps right back. So we could just roll with one cable and route this straight to the front of the car, connect that to a foot throttle, and we're good to go. So that's amazing, big win.
Off with the triple tree, remove the horn.
If we can get this yoke off with the good old fashioned American muscle. Oh yeah. I sure do love me some modern bearings. Glad I don't have to chase those around the garage floor for the next 3 years. Let's get this ignition out of here. Oh, that actually worked. I was not expecting that. That's it. We're ready to slap this thing in.
She's ready. Tonight, the Suzuki Bandit says farewell to its past life as a motorcycle, and it now embraces the upgrade to its new life as a race car. So I took the last measurements and began the sequence of pairing the 2 race machines together into one.
All right, it's that time.
And there was nothing stopping this bike from falling to the ground if a jack accidentally shifted wrong.
Oh yeah, I think I got it. I think we got this. Steady as she goes. Oh, she's almost in. She's almost in. I'm literally putting it in the hole right now. So Kurt said he could make it over here tomorrow, help me weld it in. So I think the best plan of attack here would be for me just to generally move this into place. So move this forward where it's going to go, cut off all the additional random stuff we don't need. So then tomorrow we'll just be ready to run bars and actually weld it together, chassis and chassis. It's gonna be so sick. I can't believe we're here. This is gonna be absolutely crazy. That's about where I want it, honestly. Also, the whole goal here is to be able to service the bike no matter what we have to do, even if we have to do like a full engine replacement. We need to design this thing in a way where we can service the bike and replace any part on it without having to chop the frame again. So I think a lot of this stuff is gonna have to come out. Just take this all the way out just in case. I feel like welding's probably not good for it.
So in preparation for welding tomorrow, I prepped the bike, I unloaded the new project bike from the truck, and went to get all the metal we'll need to finish the job. So the next day, I made the last adjustments, made the last cuts, and cut a lot of the tubing lengths that we'll need.
Yeah?
17, way wider here. 5 and 1/8.
Kurt had to leave early that day, which gave me a chance to cut the last length of pipe we need for when he can make it back out. So that's what I did. And in the meantime, I even made a to-do list that I can start working through. At this point in the fabrication stage of the project, I'm just cutting pipes for days, and definitely not the most interesting stuff to watch, but that's just the reality of doing a project like this. There's a lot of stuff you do over and over and over again. But I finally got to the end of the cutting, took a deep breath, looked at my work completely finished, and realized I wanted to redesign it.
I have officially decided to change the structure here. As much as I wanted this side impact protection, it also causes a concern with your head hitting it as well. So I'm gonna chop these out, modify the windshield structure.
That design was a good starting point for the Vision, like a good version 1. But now starts version 2.0 of the project, which turned out way cooler, is probably much safer, and is just as functional for rollover protection. Anyway, much better. Later that night, Kurt came back and got most of the welds finished up.
They're not fully welded in, but it's enough to drop it down right now. You guys ready? This is the very first time it's gonna be on the ground on its own 3 wheels. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Whoo, I'm liking what I see. Oh, fuck my God. Oh! Well, that's one way to lower it down. This thing is so light. It's gotta be under 1,000 pounds. Power to weight ratio on this thing is gonna be absolutely crazy. Plus I have new gearing for the sprockets too, and bro, it's gonna be so fast. And with the new cockpit design too, bro, this thing's gonna look so cool. This thing just rolls so easily. Like, look at this, that's crazy. I'd say that's pretty aligned right there. Well, let's do a rollover test, shall we? I don't think that's rolling over. Yeah, I think that's right. That ain't going nowhere. Let's get this thing finished. Let's get this on the road.
So it's time to move ahead with installing everything to get this car actually on the road. I cut and tested the seat in there.
All right, seat's not gonna work. I might use the back of it, but I gotta chop all that out.
Removed the old clutch cable we definitely will not be using, made the last cuts to the frame, and finally got the O-rings to fix the coolant leak.
All right, we finally get to move on to actually getting the bike running right. This is what we were waiting 3.5 weeks for right here. This should be the thing that fixes the entire problem that we're having with the bike. Freaking one O-ring. So anyway, let's get this installed really quick and see if we still have a coolant leak. I'm hoping this fixes it. I'm not a professional. I'm trying to slide it in the hole, but it's too tight. All right, let's crank it up. Now, this is the first time I've cranked it up on these new ignition coils and spark plugs. So this is the first time I've started it for like a month. Let's give it a shot. Dude, not super happy. See if the throttle works. This is so legit, and we're not leaking coolant. We're here. Bro. Oh, I'm stoked. That's amazing. So now I just got to run all these wires to the front, connect the clutch and the shifter right here. Literally just connect these cables together, and it's driving. We are so close. That's crazy.
Buckle up, because you're about to watch me install everything we need to get this car roadworthy. We need a shifter, we need a clutch, we need the throttle, and a ton of wiring. Let's start with the shifter. First, I had to visualize what it was gonna look like and feel like, so I sat in the car and did that. When I had the vision in my head, I took the materials I had on hand and began making a new unit.
So I'm basically combining this and this to make one shifter here.
Now you may remember that I originally bought that Honda Odyssey frame to use the shifter linkage, and today we finally get to put it to use a couple months later. Boom, one shifter in place and ready to be linked up. We went from the vision in my head to a fully functional shifter mechanism that I'll refine even further soon by attaching some springs. But of course right now it's just still getting it roughed in, but it already feels really good. Time to link it up to the transmission, which could be the hard part. It looked like I needed to cut the bike's shifter and fabricate some adapters to make it work down low.
Oh, this is actually just an overcomplicated shifter mechanism. This is gonna be the easiest thing ever.
Having removed that cover, I found that we could actually remove the whole shifter linkage and use the actual gear selector shaft. So instead of cutting and fabricating, it's a direct link to the transmission, which is so much more efficient and requires no adapting at all. It's a straight connection.
It goes straight to this. So while I was gonna fabricate a little arm to weld onto here, I can literally put this shifter linkage straight onto there, and we can legitimately just connect it like this.
Next up to figure out was the hydraulic clutch connection, which looked complicated at first, but
If this is the clutch cable, they got a line that connects straight to this. This is gonna be the easiest thing ever.
I actually had a hydraulic line that will connect straight to it. Out with the old and in with the new. So both the shifter and the clutch lever was installed. The last thing to do was bleed the clutch and it's done. The car will officially move forward and shift, but it won't move very fast without the throttle pedal.
I guess I haven't showed you yet, but this is a Mercedes throttle pedal I actually had floating around a long time. I've had this in a cabinet for years.
And today my patience actually pays off. So the premise here is that we need to fabricate a cable-driven mechanism to pair with the drive-by-wire Mercedes throttle pedal. And while it seems like a fairly small project, it actually took a lot of time to get the angles and clearances right and to design it to pull the bike's throttle cable the right distance for fully closed to fully open operation. It was actually a pretty complicated little project that required installing and uninstalling it a bunch of times to make little millimeter adjustments here and there. And there it is. Not the most beautiful part since I don't have industrial grade equipment, but it's quite functional.
There it is. It took a while to do, but I think that should be exactly what we need.
So I got it installed for the final time, ran the throttle cable, and figured out a way to connect the two cables together. And I'll probably roll like this until I actually need to replace the cable, then learn how to make a custom length one all the way from the front to the back. And the pedal worked perfectly. So now the car will move, shift, and do 150 miles per hour. And last up, and definitely not least, is wiring.
It is officially time to start running all the motorcycle wiring all the way to the front end for the gauge cluster, the controls, and everything else. So let's get to it. Let's get these connectors all disconnected. Ow. All right, there we have it. All the controls in the ignition. I thought this was going to be a connector, but dude just spliced all these wires together. Probably cut the connector out of here. Just gotta love previous owners. They are indeed color matched. Man, that would have been a nightmare if they weren't. All right, so I'll probably just go ahead and snip all of these ones and run new wires. So gauge cluster, headlights to the front. Wow. Guess I'll just break it out. No, let's see if we can do this one a little bit less sketchy. 10 millimeter, 11 millimeter. Are you serious? He really wanted this to be as permanent as possible.
Okay, I'm gonna play this clip again for you. And just notice how the bike starts up, no problem, like always. Just keep that in the back of your mind for the next few minutes, okay? Okay, let's dive into wiring. Of course, I'm doing this because I want to mount all the controls in front of the car, like in front of you when you're driving. So I need to extend the bike's stock wiring harness to do that. So the process is pretty straightforward. I'm just cutting the wires, adding in a few extra feet with the same gauge wire, and soldering it all back together into the same OEM connectors for the bike. The gauges here were the trial run. I figured that if the gauges could be successfully extended, all the rest could be too. And hint, that's a little bit of foreshadowing.
All right, one nice run of wiring. All right, we're all wired in. I'm really hoping this works. Yes! Yes, sir. Oh, dude. That is freaking legit. All right, well, I was just about to cut and extend all the wires for the controls, but I just realized these controls are so effed up. Half the controls are broken on these, and I could definitely go for a new ignition switch, and I do need to replace the gas tank key. So I just went ahead and bought an ignition switch and gas tank set for $29.99. As far as all the switches and controls, this is a 2007 Suzuki Bandit, which is not a very well-known bike, so I couldn't find any new sets of these. That being said, I think these are the exact same part as the GSXR 600 of the same year. So I get a brand new start-stop switch for a Suzuki GSXR 600, which is the exact same as this one, for $57.95. A little bit more than I was hoping to pay for that. I just found like a Chinese knockoff of this switch, same exact controls, same number of wires, $16.99. That is what I am talking about. So I'm definitely gonna buy that, and then we have some fully functioning controls. And hopefully I don't have to actually like fabricate a switch panel where we use all these wires for like custom switches. I could literally just weld this straight in there, okay? And it would function just like it should, and I wouldn't have to spend hours fabricating something, but we'll see where this takes me, all right? So that's the game plan. I'm gonna halt that. At least we got the gauge cluster wired in where it will need to be, but I'll just plug these back in on the bike when we run our tests for the first drive, temporarily. But when the new parts come in, I can extend the wires, run to the front. There we go.
And in the next 2 days, the parts came in. Brand new switches, sure from China, but hey, they're functional, they look great. And not only did the switches arrive, but the ignition arrived too.
So this ignition switch, you gotta really jimmy it. And the new one is a new one.
The old ignition was worn out, just tired. And the fuel cap actually did desperately need to be replaced. If you remember, the one that's on the tank now was completely rusted shut when I tried to open it the first time, so it's really hard to open. The gauges and the right side controls were simple wire extensions, but the whole left side control and the ignition was being replaced with an aftermarket unit. So none of the wires and the colors matched up, and there were even slight variations between the unit's internals. So this time I actually have to dive into the wiring diagrams and even open up the units themselves to verify connections would match up and operate normally. You may be tempted to think this looks fun, but let me assure you, it looks a lot more fun than it actually is. It's a very tedious process of double checking connections.
Now, it may not look like much, but I just finished all the wiring. So I extended all 4 harnesses, 3 here and then the whole gauge cluster. Took a little bit of time. Hopefully we're done now. Now this is an aftermarket switch and none of the wires on the diagrams actually matched up. Kind of had to guess at a couple of these wires. I'm just hoping they'll work, man, because I already kind of finished them up assuming that they will work. All right, ignition. That works. Kill switch. Excellent. That seems to work. High beams. High beams, at least, I don't have headlights plugged in, but the high beam switch does in fact turn on. Turn signals, please. Yes. They both work. Ha! Hazards? Hazards work! Excellent. Horn. I think the horn's just broken. What a massive win. First try. Boom, all the wires work, I think. And let's just make sure it'll actually start too. Oh gosh. Oh, please. Ignition is on. Everything should be go. This is the stock switch, and it's the only thing that doesn't work. What? Oh gosh, we're in neutral and it's not starting. That's not good. Oh, that's not good. This is literally the only switch I didn't change.
Okay, so I dummy checked everything 5 or 6 times to make absolutely sure that this should be working, but it isn't. After verifying that yes, the bike should be starting, I suspected the aftermarket ignition switch must have different internals or a different resistor than the stock one did. So I went ahead and just swapped the old internals back into the new switch.
Old electronics into a new tumbler, old wiring. So let's go ahead and resolder everything back in. All right, well, I'm having some unfortunate serious wiring problems. I verified the start button is in fact working, but it's just not starting the bike. Everything else works completely fine. And I suspected it was because of the ignition internals not being the same. It just, there was like a different resistor, or the wiring was different between the two, which was not allowing the start button to work. But I put the old internals in here and it functions the exact same. I think the other one was just fine. So my best guess now is that the ignition has a resistor that reads an exact resistance to the starter motor. My suspicion is extending the wiring harness actually changes the resistance by the time it gets to the starter motor, doesn't allow it to start, and everything else checked out. So unfortunately, the only way to verify this is literally just to cut out all of this and then wire it back in how it was stock and see if it'll work that way. And if it works with the stock lengths of wire, that just means we can't extend the harness to the front. And so we'll have to wire the ignition in somewhere back here. There's no other way around it. I guess I just have to chop all that out and then start over. The only other thing I can think of would be, I'm gonna try to fix the neutral indicator light right now. The neutral indicator has never worked on this. You guys can see it is in fact in neutral. And then if it still doesn't start, I'll chop all the wires, start over on that.
At this point, I'm just trying to fix anything that might be preventing the bike from starting before I actually chop all the wires back out.
All right, well, I'm genuinely amazed. That is all it needed to fix the neutral light with just some electronics cleaner. That's crazy. I unplugged it, cleaned it, put it back in, and it works again. So you guys can see if I put it in gear, it's off, and then find neutral, and it's back on. See if it'll fire up for some reason. Nope, still nothing. But hey, we have a neutral light. So I guess next up is just chop all this out, see if it'll work at the stock lengths. And if that's it, we'll just mount it up there. And if it's not it, I'll just move ahead knowing it's not the problem.
Man, what a bummer having to remove all the work I just finished. And for something that never was a problem before and shouldn't be a problem now. I did a lot of work off camera verifying everything and reverting all the wiring back to stock.
Still nothing. Why? All right, everything back to stock length. Nothing. No way. It literally just worked fine. I don't want to suspect the switch is bad all of a sudden, but I guess let's try cleaning it.
The worst part is, now that I know it still doesn't work in its stock form, I probably just cut all the wires back out for no reason, and now there's probably some deeper issue not related to wiring at all, so I'm gonna have to put it all back in again.
Well, there's no change, so I'm literally reverting everything I just did back to how it was, just to get it to freaking start again. Good chance it's the ignition, so let's put this back together how it was before, but it all seems to work fine. I don't understand. All right, old ignition, still nothing. Freaking no way, dude.
What a massive disappointment tonight. This right now was supposed to be the first test and the first drive. We were 100% ready for it.
Nothing I can do about it, just not starting up anymore. I'm currently waiting on parts. I'm just gonna buy a new kill switch. I'm gonna buy a new solenoid. Fired up perfectly fine, and then I extended the wires, and now it won't start anymore. And then I put them all back to stock, and it still won't start anymore.
But as always, I'll push ahead and keep finishing what I can. I still need to rebuild the braking system before a full drive on it, but when all the parts arrive, I'll be absolutely stoked to show you guys the first drive. So stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time.